Hi everyone, I'm Julie Bonner. I created this family history channel to do a number of things, but one of them specifically is to help enable you to use technology around family history. And so you may have come to genealogy, whatever way you came to it. It might be a family member that was doing it and you got interested that way. I got interested in it because of a high school history project. My junior year, my history teacher wanted us to do a family genealogy and go back as far as we could, at least, you know, 3 or 4 generations if we could. And interestingly enough, my family had been in this particular area of Alabama for over 100 years by then. And so I knew all of my grandparents. I knew one of my great grandparents. She didn't pass away until I was 16. Um, so I got to know her pretty well. Uh, all the rest of my great grandparents I didn't know. And so my mother, when I got home from school, she was like, "Oh, yeah, I've got pictures, I've got everything, to help you with this." And she even had some great great grandparents' names and things like that. Not everybody, but most. And I just fell in love with it. But as you know, as a family researcher, you know that most times all you can ever find, if you're lucky, are census records, a birth date, a death date, a marriage date. And that's about as far as you get as far as fleshing out a real human being. Okay. Uh, so unless a particular family member is famous, that's often all you ever get on people that you have never met personally in your life. So my two times great grandfather was the first person that I had ever seen write anything down. It was the first collection of his writings that I had ever found on any family member. And I was so excited to find this because if you have ever run across like this little treasure trove of a box of letters or, articles that have been written in a paper or anything that people have left behind of their personal thoughts on subject matters, uh, there is nothing like seeing that. Okay. Because regardless of my two-time great-grandfather's opinions about various things, I mean, he fought in the Confederacy, so, I knew he would probably have negative opinions about certain things. Um, the fact of the matter is he wrote them down, and I will talk about that in a later video of what I found about that. But he became a live human being to me, even though I had never met him in my life. Okay. I have pictures of him. I actually have pictures of him as a young man and as an older man. And they are some of the most priceless photographs I have. And also his articles are interesting, and I will talk about this in a future video where I knew he embellished a lot, right? Southerners are good at tall tales. I'm good at that. Most of us are good at that. We have stories we like to tell and we embellish them over the years for effect and everything. And so he definitely did that. But here's what I could tell. Here's what I could tell. Regardless of how he may have felt about certain things, which I don't agree with, but we'll talk about that later in another video. I could tell he was a very funny guy. I could tell he was very humorous. I could tell that he had a certain way of talking that I would have loved to have sat across from him and listened to him talk, right? And I will say that when I actually finally went to his gravesite in Alabama, uh, I did cry at his gravesite because I felt like I knew him, right? You know, it was bizarre. And if you've ever run across this in your own family history, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It felt personal, okay? Because he left more of himself behind than just a name on a headstone. Okay. So part of why I'm doing this series, just like I did with Loose Pearls about my paternal grandparents, I wrote a book about their letters, and I wrote that book in a very different way. And I have a series of videos about that book and how I used AI as a tool to help me to make sense of all those letters, because I had over 500 letters to make sense out of and to group in a certain way to help make it tell a story about them. And I knew that I would never be able to sort and sift through all of that, all of those words by myself, okay, and have it make any sense, you know. Plus, I'm not a historian, so trying to do all the research around United States history at the time and world history at the time, AI was just better as a research assistant, okay. And in this case, it had its particular challenges because it's Civil War history, and I wanted to get that right. And to separate fact from fiction, because he has a lot of fiction going on. Okay. And so I'm going to talk you through kind of how I did that, because you never know when you're going to find this cache of written treasure in your own family. And if you want to write a book about it and put it on KDP, on Amazon, Kindle Publishing, here's how I did it. And you can kind of follow what I'm doing. You don't have to do it exactly like I'm doing, because you may have a particular spin on things that you want to do. But I'm telling you, AI helped a lot. Okay. So that's the point of this series of videos about my 2 times great-grandfather. The book is published now. It's called Killicranky because that was his nickname for some reason. It has actually a Scottish origin, but I don't know how he knew it. I have no idea. That will always be a mystery as to why he called himself that. But nonetheless, the book is published. Loose Pearls is published. And these videos are your tools for how you can think about approaching a project like this. All right. So talk to you soon on another video.